I stood there in my emerald silk dress, the one Richard said made my eyes sparkle, watching my husband of 40 years raise his champagne glass to toast his rock. The crystal chandelier above us cast dancing shadows across 200 smiling faces. But I wasn't smiling, because I knew exactly who his real rock was, and she was sitting at table 7, pretending to be just another guest at our anniversary celebration. Hello, I'm Vivian. I'm 63 years old, and this is the story of how I destroyed my husband's perfect little lie in front of everyone who mattered to him. Before I tell you how it all fell apart, I'd love to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your location in the comments. It helps me know I'm not alone in this. Now, let me take you back to where this nightmare really began. 3 months before our 40th anniversary party at the Harbor View Estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. It was a Tuesday morning in April. I remember because Tuesdays were my volunteer days at the hospital library. I'd been doing it for 15 years, something to fill the hours after our daughter Emma moved to Seattle and our son Michael settled in Boston. The house felt too quiet without them. I was running late that morning, rushing around looking for my reading glasses. I'd checked the kitchen counter, the nightstand, the bathroom, everywhere I normally left them. Then I remembered I'd been going through some old photo albums the night before in Richard's study. He told me months ago to feel free to use his desk when I needed space to spread out my projects. His study was his sanctuary: mahogany bookshelves, leather chair, a massive oak desk that had belonged to his father. Richard was a commercial real estate attorney, successful enough that we'd lived comfortably in our colonial home for 37 years. He'd never been the type to hide things from me. Or so I thought. I found my glasses on his desk, right next to his laptop. The screen was dark, but as I reached for my glasses, my elbow bumped the mouse. The screen flickered to life. I should have looked away. I should have just grabbed my glasses and left. But something stopped me. Call it instinct, call it fate, call it 40 years of knowing someone so well that you can sense when something's off. His email was open. The preview pane showed the most recent message, received at 11:43 the night before, after I'd gone to bed, after he'd kissed my forehead and told me he had just a bit more work to finish up. The sender's name was Jennifer Walsh, his secretary of 12 years. I'd met her countless times at company events, pleasant smile, efficient manner, married to a man named David who worked in finance. She'd send us a Christmas card every year with a photo of their golden retriever. The subject line read, "Can't wait for tomorrow." My hand trembled as I clicked the message open. "My darling Richard, counting the hours until I see you again. Last night was incredible. I love you more than words can express. Tomorrow, usual place, usual time. Forever yours, Jay." I stood frozen in that study for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. My mind raced through possibilities, explanations, anything that would make this message mean something other than what it so clearly meant. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was meant for someone else. Maybe Jennifer's email had been hacked. But I wasn't stupid, and I wasn't the type of woman to lie to herself. 40 years of marriage teaches you to recognize the truth, even when it tastes like poison. I grabbed my phone and took a photo of the screen. My hands shook so badly I had to take 3 shots before I got one that wasn't blurred. Then I carefully moved the mouse back to where it had been, darkening the screen, and left everything exactly as I'd found it. I didn't go to my volunteer shift that day. I couldn't. Instead, I drove to the beach, the same beach where Richard proposed to me in 1985, down on one knee in the sand while the sun set over Long Island Sound. I was 23 then, fresh out of college, full of dreams about the life we'd build together. And we did build it. 2 children, a beautiful home, dinner parties and vacation trips, and countless quiet evenings watching TV on the couch, his hand in mine. When Michael was diagnosed with appendicitis at age 7, Richard held me while I cried in the hospital waiting room. When my mother died, he organized the entire funeral while I fell apart. When Emma got into her first-choice college, we danced in the kitchen like teenagers. How long had this been going on? That question haunted me as I sat on that beach, watching the waves roll in. The email said, "Last night was incredible," which meant they were sleeping together. The usual place, usual time meant this was routine, regular, an established pattern. I thought about his late nights at the office over the past year, maybe longer. The weekend, emergency meetings with clients. The conference in Chicago last month where he said spouses weren't invited. He'd come home with a tie I'd never seen before, said a client gave it to him as a thank you gift. I'd believed him because why wouldn't I? We'd been married for 40 years. You don't spend 4 decades with someone and suspect them of being a liar. But now I wondered about everything. Every late night, every business trip, every time he'd been distant or distracted at dinner. Had Jennifer been there? Had he been thinking about her while sitting across from me? My phone rang. Richard, probably wondering where I was. I let it go to voicemail. He called again and again. The 4th time, I answered. "Vivian, where are you? Your volunteer coordinator called the house looking for you." His voice was concerned, caring, the voice I'd loved for 4 decades. "I wasn't feeling well," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I'm just getting some fresh air. Do you need me to come home?" "No, stay at work, Richard. I know how busy you are." After we hung up, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him yet. I was going to find out exactly how deep this betrayal went. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I became a spy in my own marriage. Richard left for work at 7:30, same as always. He kissed me goodbye, told me he'd be home by 6. I watched from the window as his silver Mercedes pulled out of the driveway. Then I went straight to his study. I'd spent half the night researching how to check someone's computer history. Our daughter, Emma, had taught me enough about technology over the years. I wasn't helpless, but I'd never had a reason to snoop before. His laptop required a password. I tried our anniversary date. Wrong. I tried the kids' birthdays. Wrong. Then I tried something that made my stomach turn. Jennifer's birthday. I'd seen it on the office birthday calendar years ago, February 14th. Valentine's Day. Of course. Wrong again. Thank God for small mercies. Then I remembered. His father's birthday combined with our house number. He used it for everything he wanted to remember but keep secure. 7:15:42. The laptop opened. I spent 3 hours going through everything. Deleted emails that weren't quite deleted. I found them in a folder he'd apparently forgotten to empty. Messages going back 18 months. 18 months of "I love you" and "I miss you" and "tonight was perfect." Hotel reservations. Restaurant confirmations for intimate dinners while I thought he was meeting clients. There were photos. I won't describe them. I'll just say they made very clear that this wasn't some emotional affair or midlife crisis fantasy. This was real, physical, a full relationship happening in parallel to our marriage. One email from 8 months ago stopped me cold. Jennifer had written, "David suspects something. He asked why I was working so many late nights. I told him we're preparing for the Morrison acquisition. He seemed to believe me, but I'm worried. We need to be more careful." David, her husband, a man who, like me, had no idea his spouse was living a double life. I took photos of everything, hundreds of emails, receipts, photos. I backed them up to a thumb drive and hid it in an old tampon box under the bathroom sink, the one place I knew Richard would never look. That evening, he came home right at 6, just like he promised. He brought flowers. Tulips, my favorite. "Saw these and thought of you," he said, kissing my cheek. I put them in water and made his favorite dinner, pot roast with roasted vegetables. We ate together at the dining room table. He told me about his day, about a difficult client, about how Jennifer had managed to smooth over a scheduling conflict. He said her name so casually, no guilt in his voice, no hesitation. "She's really been invaluable to me," he said. "I don't know what I'd do without her." I smiled and poured him more wine. "She does seem wonderful. We should have her and David over for dinner sometime. We haven't done that in ages." His hand paused halfway to his mouth, just for a second. Then he recovered. "That's a nice idea. I'll mention it to her." He wouldn't, of course. The last thing he wanted was his two worlds colliding, but I would make sure they did. Our 40th anniversary was 2 months away. Richard had already started planning what he called a proper celebration, a party at the Harbor View estate with all our friends, family, and his business associates, 200 guests, a live band, champagne toasts, and speeches. "This is a milestone, Viv," he'd said weeks earlier, before I knew the truth. 40 years. We should celebrate it right. Now sitting at my kitchen table with all the evidence of his betrayal on a thumb drive in my pocket, I had a different kind of celebration in mind. I waited 2 weeks before making my move. I needed to be sure. I needed to know this was real and ongoing, not some awful mistake or misunderstanding I'd blown out of proportion. So I watched. I paid attention. I noticed. The pattern became clear. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, Richard came home late, usually around 9. "Working late," he'd say. On Tuesdays, Jennifer's car wasn't in the office parking lot after 6. I knew because I drove by. She left work early on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Where did they meet? I didn't know yet, but I'd find out. But first, I needed to find David Walsh. It wasn't hard. LinkedIn showed he worked as a financial analyst at Sterling Capital Management in Stamford. I found his work email through their company website. On a Wednesday afternoon, I sat down and composed a message I rewrote 17 times before I finally hit send. "Dear Mr. Walsh, you don't know me, but my name is Vivian Hartford. I believe we have something important to discuss regarding our spouses who work together. I would like to meet with you privately to share information I think you deserve to know. I understand this message may seem strange or concerning. I assure you I'm not trying to sell you anything or involve you in any scheme. This is a matter of truth and respect between two people who deserve better than what they're getting. If you're willing to meet, please reply to this email. I'll leave the time and location up to you. Sincerely, Vivian Hartford." He responded within 3 hours. "Mrs. Hartford, your message has concerned me greatly. I'd like to meet as soon as possible. Tomorrow, 4 p.m. at the Starbucks on Bedford Street in Stamford, I'll be in a blue suit with a gray tie." David Walsh. The next day, I arrived 15 minutes early. I ordered a coffee I didn't drink and sat at a corner table, watching the door. At exactly 4 p.m., a man walked in, mid-40s, tall, wearing exactly what he'd described. He looked tired. Or maybe that was just what betrayal looked like before you knew its name. I raised my hand slightly. He saw me and walked over. "Mrs. Hartford?" "Vivian, please. Thank you for meeting me." He sat down across from me, his expression guarded. "Your email suggested something serious. I don't know how to say this gently, so I'm just going to be direct. I have evidence that your wife Jennifer and my husband Richard are having an affair. It's been going on for at least 18 months. The color drained from his face. David Walsh stared at me for a long moment, his jaw working like he was trying to form words that wouldn't come. Then he said, very quietly, "Show me." I pulled out my tablet. I'd transferred some of the emails, the ones that made everything clear but weren't the intimate photos. He needed to see the truth, but I wasn't cruel enough to show him everything at once. He read in silence. His hand started shaking halfway through the second email. When he finished, he set the tablet down carefully, like it might shatter if he wasn't gentle enough. 18 months, he said. Not a question. A confirmation of something he'd already suspected, maybe. The late nights, the work emergencies. I asked her about it 6 months ago. She told me I was being paranoid and jealous. She said I was imagining things. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "I know this is... Why are you showing me this?" He looked up at me, and I saw something in his eyes that mirrored what I felt. Not just pain, rage. "You could have just divorced him quietly. Why involve me?" "Because they're attending our 40th anniversary party together," I said. "Richard invited all his business associates, including Jennifer. She RSVP'd yes, with a +1. You. His laugh was bitter. Of course she did. What better cover than bringing the devoted husband to the boss's anniversary party? I want to expose them, I said, publicly, in front of everyone they've lied to, and I want your help to do it. David was quiet for a long time. Then he asked, "What did you have in mind?" I told him my plan. As I spoke, something changed in his expression. The devastation was still there, but underneath it, I saw the same cold determination I felt burning in my own chest. When I finished, he nodded slowly. That's brilliant and brutal. They've earned brutal. When is this party? 6 weeks from Saturday, June 15th, 7 p.m. at the Harbor View Estate. He pulled out his phone and made a note. Jennifer already told me about it, said we should go to support her boss. I thought it was odd she was so insistent, but now, he shook his head. Now it makes perfect sense. She wanted to parade our marriage in front of him, proof that everything's normal, that she's got us both fooled. Will you come? I asked. Will you play along until the moment I give the signal? David looked at me with eyes that had gone from shock to cold in the span of 30 minutes. Mrs. Hartford, Vivian, I'll do more than that. I'll help you burn their world down. We exchanged phone numbers. We planned the details. And when I drove home that evening, I felt something I hadn't felt since finding that email in Richard's study. I felt powerful. That night, Richard came home at 9:15. Sorry, honey, had to finalize some paperwork. He kissed my forehead, the same way he'd done for 40 years. That's all right, dear, I said, smiling. Did you get the final head count for the anniversary party? We need to confirm numbers with the caterer. 203 confirmed. It's going to be quite an event. Yes, I said. It certainly will be. The 6 weeks before the party passed in a strange blur. I played the perfect wife. I confirmed catering details, approved the floral arrangements, selected the music playlist with the band director, white roses and hydrangeas, classic jazz standards, a special anniversary waltz where Richard and I would dance while everyone watched. Richard seemed happier than he'd been in years. He thought he'd pulled it off. 40 years of marriage, successful career, beautiful home, and his secret affair alive and well. He thought he had it all. I knew better. But I smiled and nodded and acted excited about our big celebration. David and I texted regularly, brief messages carefully worded in case either of our spouses saw them. He was playing his part perfectly, too. Jennifer had no idea he knew. She'd even bought a new dress for the party. Something special, she told David. She wanted to look good for Richard while pretending to be there as the faithful secretary with her devoted husband. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. 3 days before the party, Richard's mother called from her assisted living facility in Massachusetts. She'd fallen and broken her hip. Richard needed to drive up to be with her for the surgery. I'll come with you, I said. No. He waved me off. Someone needs to stay here and handle the final party details. I'll be back Friday night, plenty of time before Saturday's event. He left Thursday morning. I checked his laptop that afternoon. He'd gotten sloppy, left it unlocked in his rush. There was an email to Jennifer. With V occupied with party planning and me stuck with my mother, we won't see each other until the party. I'll miss you. Can't wait to see you in that blue dress. You'll be the most beautiful woman in the room. I took a screenshot and sent it to David. His reply came immediately. Can't wait for Saturday. Friday night, Richard returned home exhausted. His mother's surgery had gone well, but the trip had worn him out. I made him tea, rubbed his shoulders, told him to rest up for tomorrow. 40 years, Viv, he said, holding my hand. We've built a good life together. Yes, I said. We certainly have. Saturday arrived bright and clear. Perfect June weather. The Harbor View estate looked magnificent, decorated exactly as I'd envisioned. White roses everywhere, tables set with our finest china, the view of Long Island Sound sparkling in the distance. Our children arrived early, Emma from Seattle, Michael from Boston. They hugged us both, excited about the celebration. My sister Carol came with her husband. Richard's brothers drove up from Virginia. Friends from college, neighbors from our street, Richard's business partners and colleagues. And Jennifer, arriving in a stunning blue dress, her hand linked with David's arm. She smiled at me warmly. "Vivian, everything looks absolutely beautiful. Congratulations to you both." "Thank you so much for coming, Jennifer," I said, matching her smile. "You and David mean so much to Richard. I made sure you had excellent seats, table 7, right up front near the head table." Her smile faltered for just a fraction of a second, but she recovered. How thoughtful. If you're watching this and enjoying the story, if you can't wait to see what happens when I finally stand up and speak, please hit that subscribe button right now. Dinner was served at 8. Prime rib and salmon, roasted vegetables, champagne flowing freely. The band played soft jazz while guests mingled and laughed. Michael and Emma came up to the head table repeatedly, hugging me, telling me how happy they were to see their parents celebrate this milestone. If they only knew. I watched Jennifer throughout dinner. She was playing her role perfectly. The attentive secretary, smiling politely, making small talk with other guests at her table. David sat beside her, his expression neutral, playing his role just as well. To anyone watching, they looked like a normal couple enjoying their boss's anniversary party. But I caught the moments. The way Jennifer's eyes kept drifting to Richard. The small smile that crossed her face when he laughed at something his brother said. The way she touched her necklace, a delicate silver pendant, and I suddenly realized Richard had probably given it to her. How many gifts had there been? How much of our money had he spent on her? At 9 o'clock, the band director announced it was time for speeches. Richard's brother went first, sharing funny stories from their childhood. My sister Carol spoke about our wedding day 40 years ago. Emma and Michael both gave beautiful speeches about growing up with us as parents, about the love they saw between us every day. Every word felt like a knife. Then Richard stood up. The room fell silent. He held his champagne glass, looking distinguished in his navy suit. 203 people watched him, waiting. 40 years ago, he began, I married the love of my life. Vivian, you have been my partner through everything, raising our amazing children, building our home, supporting my career. You've been there for every triumph and every challenge. I smiled from my seat, playing my part. Marriage isn't easy, he continued. It takes work, commitment, and dedication. But most importantly, it takes having someone beside you who is your rock, someone steady and true, who you can count on no matter what. He raised his glass higher. So tonight I want to toast my rock of 40 years, to Vivian. I stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. Every eye in the room turned to me. That's very sweet, Richard, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the suddenly silent room. But before everyone drinks to that, I'd like to add something. Richard looked confused. This wasn't part of the plan. Vivian, I wasn't finished. I know, dear, but I think our guests would be interested to hear me thank someone too. I turned to face the room, seeing all the faces I'd known for years, decades, some of them. You see, my husband is absolutely right. Marriage does take dedication. It takes commitment. It takes honesty. I looked directly at table 7. Jennifer had gone pale. David sat perfectly still. So I'd like to thank Richard's other rock, I said clearly. The woman who's been so dedicated to him for the past 18 months. Jennifer Walsh, would you please stand up? Table 7, everyone. Let's all get a good look at my husband's devoted secretary. The room exploded into gasps and whispers. Jennifer remained frozen in her seat. Stand up, Jennifer, I said again. Don't be shy now. Richard's face had gone from confused to horrified. Vivian, what are you... This is insane. You're making a scene. Oh, I'm just getting started, Richard. I pulled out my phone, my hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Would you like me to read some emails? I have 18 months' worth. Or perhaps we could start with this one from last Tuesday. My darling Richard, last night in room 447 was incredible. I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. I love you more than anything." The gasps got louder. Emma stood up from her seat, her face stricken. "Mom, what's happening?" Michael had gone pale, looking between me and his father. Jennifer finally stood. Her blue dress, the one Richard said made her the most beautiful woman in the room, suddenly looking like a costume she was trapped in. "This is a misunderstanding. Mrs. Hartford, you're clearly upset, but—" "Sit down, Jennifer," David said quietly from beside her. His voice cut through the chaos. "It's over." She turned to him, her eyes wide. "David, this is crazy. She's making things up." "I've seen the emails too," David said, standing now. He looked at Richard with an expression of pure contempt. "Every single one of them. The hotel receipts, the restaurant bills, the photos." The room fell into shocked silence. Richard tried to salvage it. He actually tried. "Everyone, please, this is a terrible misunderstanding. Vivian, Jennifer, we need to talk privately." "No." My voice came out stronger than I expected. "No more private conversations, no more lies, no more pretending. You stood here and toasted 40 years of marriage while your mistress sat 20 feet away wearing jewelry you bought her with our money. You talked about dedication and commitment while you've been sleeping with your secretary in hotel rooms and lying to me every single day." I looked around the room at all the faces staring at us, friends, family, colleagues. "I'm sorry that you all had to witness this. I'm sorry your evening is ruined, but I'm not sorry for telling the truth. I spent 6 weeks planning this party, knowing what I know, because I wanted everyone who enabled this, everyone who invited Jennifer to family events, who saw them together and looked the other way, who thought I was the stupid, trusting wife. I wanted you all to see the truth at once." My sister Carol stood up and came to my side. She put her arm around me. Emma followed, tears streaming down her face. Michael stood on my other side, glaring at his father. "Dad, how could you?" Emma's voice broke. Richard reached toward her. "Emma, please, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain," Michael said coldly. "You cheated on Mom for 18 months. With your secretary. It's not complicated." Jennifer tried to leave, but David blocked her path. "We're not done here," he told her. "You wanted to come to this party so badly. You wanted to be close to him while pretending we were fine. Well, now everyone knows, so sit down and face what you've done." Richard looked at me across the wreckage of our anniversary party. "Vivian, please, we can fix this. 40 years. 40 years of my life wasted on a liar," I said. The party ended in chaos. Guests left in awkward groups, whispering and staring. The band packed up in silence. The beautiful cake I'd ordered, white fondant with gold accents, sat untouched on its table, a monument to a celebration that never happened. Richard tried to follow me as I left, but Michael stepped between us. "Don't," my son said. "Don't you dare." I went home with Emma and Carol. We didn't speak during the drive. What was there to say? They'd just watched 40 years of family history dissolve in 15 minutes. Back at the house, back at what used to be our home, Emma made tea while Carol sat beside me on the couch. The same couch where Richard and I had watched thousands of movies together, where we'd fallen asleep during countless Sunday afternoons, where he'd held me when my mother died. "Mom," Emma said carefully, bringing the tea, "how long have you known?" 3 months. I found emails in his laptop." 3 months? Carol stared at me. "You knew for 3 months and didn't say anything?" I wanted proof. I wanted to be sure. And I wanted to make sure that when I exposed him, there was no room for him to lie his way out of it. My phone buzzed. A text from David Walsh. "Are you all right?" I typed back, "Are you?" His response came immediately. "No. But I'm glad the truth is finally out. Jennifer's staying at her sister's. I've contacted a divorce attorney. Thank you for having the courage to do what needed to be done. Thank you for standing with me." Richard came home around midnight. I heard his key in the lock, heard his footsteps in the foyer. Emma and Carol had gone to bed in the guest rooms. They'd refused to leave me alone. He stood in the doorway of the living room. He looked 10 years older than he had that morning. "Vivian, pack a bag," I said. "You're not sleeping here tonight. Or any other night. Please, let me explain." "Explain what? That you fell in love with someone else? That you've been lying to me every single day for 18 months? That you were planning to keep lying for who knows how much longer? It's not what you think." "Richard, I have every email, every text message, every hotel receipt. I know about the apartment you rented in Stamford for your Tuesday and Thursday night meetings. I know you told her you loved her. I know you told her we were more like roommates than spouses, that you stayed with me out of obligation. Was any of that true?" He didn't answer. "That's what I thought." I stood up. "My attorney will contact yours on Monday. You'll get divorce papers by the end of the week. You can keep your apartment in Stamford. I'm sure Jennifer will be available now that David's divorcing her too. You can finally have what you wanted." "What about the house? The kids? Our life?" "You should have thought about that before you destroyed it," I said. "Now get out." He left. I heard his car pull out of the driveway, and then the house was finally quiet. The divorce took 11 months. Richard's attorney tried to argue for reconciliation, for mediation, for couples counseling. My attorney, a fierce woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in high-net-worth divorces, shut down every attempt. "My client has documentation of an 18-month extramarital affair," Patricia told them. "Your client can either settle fairly or we can air every detail in court. His choice." Richard settled. I got the house, the one we'd raised our children in, the one I'd made into a home for 40 years. I got half of his retirement accounts, half the investment portfolio, and alimony based on my 40 years as a supportive spouse who'd sacrificed her own career to raise his children and maintain his household. Jennifer and David divorced too. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Jennifer left the law firm. Not fired, but the environment became untenable after everyone knew what she'd done. David got primary custody of their dog and their vacation home in Vermont. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. The hardest part wasn't the legal proceedings. It was rebuilding my relationship with Emma and Michael. They were devastated by their father's betrayal. Emma stopped speaking to Richard for 6 months. Michael still keeps him at arm's length. "We thought we had the perfect family," Emma said to me one evening, about 4 months after the anniversary party. She'd come home for a long weekend. "We thought you two were the example of what marriage should be." "Marriage should be honesty," I told her. "Real, genuine honesty. What your father and I had, at least for the last 18 months, wasn't a marriage. It was a performance. Are you okay, Mom? Really okay?" The truth was, I was better than okay. The house felt lighter without Richard's lies filling it. I'd started painting again, something I'd given up decades ago. I'd reconnected with old friends. I'd even gone on a trip to Italy with Carol, something I'd always wanted to do. "I'm angry," I admitted. "I'm sad about wasted time, but I'm also free, and that's worth something." As for Richard and Jennifer, last I heard they weren't together. Turns out affairs lose their excitement when they're no longer secret. When your relationship is built on betrayal, there's no foundation strong enough to support it in the light of day. Richard sends cards to the kids on birthdays and holidays. He tries to reach out to me sometimes, texts that I delete without reading. He made his choice. He chose 18 months of lies over 40 years of truth. That's something he has to live with, not me. Looking back at that anniversary party, at the moment I stood up and shattered the perfect illusion Richard had created, I don't regret it. Not for a second. Some people might say I should have handled it privately, quietly, with dignity. But I had been quiet for 3 months while I gathered proof. I had been dignified for 40 years while I was a faithful wife. That night, at that party, I chose truth over dignity. I chose justice over quiet suffering. and I'd make the same choice again.